Past players, past legends, past legends.
And tonight we are privileged to have Neil Balme on. Of course, 1970 to 1979 at Richmond, 159 games, 229 goals, dual premiership player in 72-74. Balme will shoot me for that mistake. In terms of that, look, I like this line from Mike Sheehan, where Mike says his reputation as an enforcer undermines his true worth as a player. Dual premiership ruckman forward, kicked 229 goals, including 55 and 72. Mike named Neil as number 16 of his top 50 Tigers. For me, that describes it pretty well. Of course, more importantly, 13 games for Norwood, 22 goals. Dual premiership coach at Norwood. Great to have you on board, Balme.
Pleasure to be here, mate.
And probably your most courageous thing, you survived the lift with me back from Tanunda a couple of weeks ago, Balme. So.
Exactly.
I'm not even going to go there on that one there, but mate, obviously doing a little bit of research. I'm a mad Norwood man myself, but you obviously want to be prepared for some of these interviews. And born in Perth, mate. Tell us your time in Perth in your early days there for some of your junior football.
Oh, well, I loved playing footy. I played for Mount Pleasant in the old days, and they were the Tigers. Would you believe that?
It's a bit of irony. Wow. Yep.
And then went to Wembley, and they were black and white. So I've been everywhere. But and then I played for Subiaco. I was lucky enough as a 16-year-old to play a couple of games or 4 games for Subi as a 16-year-old when Hayden Bunton was coach there, and my first ever game of senior footy was against Polly Bloody Farmer. So how do you reckon I went?
My males, you've always been played yourself down a bit on that one, Balme, and I find that fascinating too. So you've played 4 games there as a kid, including doing quite well against Polly. Then you end up going. Your father gets transferred at his employment to Victoria. Let people in, because probably everyone's not quite aware, Collingwood were making a play for your dad, but let everyone know how Richmond convinced you to get you on board. They were a bit smarter about it, Balme.
Oh, they were very clever. As it turned out, we landed at Essendon Airport in those days on January the 4th, 1969, and Richmond was there. Jack Dyer was there to meet us, along with Alan Schwab and Graham Richmond, and I think Ronnie Carson was there too. We're neither here nor there, but they just came. There was no plan for that to happen, and so both Ian and I were the players, and we were very excited by the fact that they were there to meet us. Collingwood had worked pretty hard on the old man to convince him that Collingwood was a good place to go to, but I think they probably forgot about us a little bit. But Richmond were very clever. Because Alan Schwab said to both Ian and I after a few days in, he said, if our boys are going to the Gold Coast next week for a pre-season trip, if you sign, you can come. And we said, where do we sign?
Yeah, I reckon that would have taken you all of about 0.01 of a second. You probably made the hullabaloo this week about Maynard's reaction time pale into significance, how you would have signed that form, Balme.
Oh, no, it was we're from Perth. We'd just turned up to Melbourne. We'd never been to the Gold Coast. We thought this is not a bad place to go. So, yeah, we were pretty easy to get, I must admit. But it was the best decision we ever made, to be truthful. So, Richmond have been wonderful to me.
Now, on that, Pete, end of season trip, let's just say a few of the Richmond older players might have thought we might be able to blow this young tyrant away on the drinking stakes, and let's just say that Balme may have well and truly held his own in that regard, and a couple of them might have pulled up, were quite surprised by how well the youngster did. So yes.
Yeah, well, I wasn't allowed to drink in those days.
No, of course not, Balme. No.
But I did have a couple, and I was actually pretty good at it.
Mate, playing for Subiaco at 16, we had Dexter Kennedy on last week, playing at 15 years of age. So we're just finding all these players at the moment that have started their careers at such a young age. How did you feel being told, look, you're going to be playing in the seniors this week?
Oh, I think it was just part of what we did. I was, very proud of it and really happy with it. I played reserves most of the year, and even as a 16-year-old, I'd done okay. As it turned out, the coach who was at Wembley Athletic Club, who coached the under-16s and under-18s, he went to coach one of the junior teams at Subi, and he encouraged me to come. But as soon as Hayden Button saw me, he said, "I'll pull this bloke into the senior program." So I was very lucky, really, because I was still pretty skinny and pretty light, but I was a decent size. I could play okay, so it wasn't probably all that unusual that they were trying to promote me for later on. And if the old man hadn't been transferred to Melbourne, I'd still be playing for Subi probably. But so who knows? But it was it was good fun. We really loved it. Yeah.
And then obviously moving to, as you said, moving over to Melbourne and playing at Richmond. What was the process like going to a big club like Richmond at the time and forcing your way into their senior side?
No, I'm just going to butt in there, Pete. I find nowadays, as we know, a kid gets drafted, they go and play, bang, they're there. It's quite extraordinary for Balme. He's played senior football in Perth, ends up going to Richmond and plays under 19s.
I think that's where I was alluding. Yep.
Yeah, which I find fascinating, Balme, in that regard, and that you were then you'd gone from seniors and then had almost the old-fashioned build-up after that, the other way sort of thing.
Oh, well, yeah, we weren't sort of worried about that. It was a bit of a difference between VFL footy and waffle footy in those days, but quite a significant difference in it. Not as big a difference as there is nowadays, but there was quite a difference. So I was more than happy to play under 19s. I mean, that was a really challenging program in itself. I played under 19s and reserves in the first year, and then in the second year I played some senior footy later on. But I'd had some knee problems as well. So, no, it was certainly... the fact that I played 4 senior games for Subi was almost, out of the blue in a sense, because I was only a kid. It was really only because Bunt was, trying to find a player, I think. But no, I was never put off by that. I thought playing under 19s for Richmond I played in the premiership team in '69, so I was very pleased with that. Yeah.
And so then moving through the system and you're at a powerful club. Just describe that, with Tom Hafey and the whole and Graham Richmond, and we'll get onto the Graham Richmond negatives a bit later, but just more the positives at the start and just being at the Richmond Footy Club.
And who took you under their wing?
Oh, they all did in their own way. It was, Slug Jordan was my coach in the 19s, and he was fantastic. We finished up bloody good friends later on as well. He's a character. Yeah. But Alan Schwab was a very good secretary. They all, the players all took us under their wing as well. It was, it was, even in those days, was quite a, they accepted you and they encouraged you to do well. And it was a bit more challenging, a bit more simple in do what you're bloody told to a degree. But it was a damn good club. We really enjoyed it. And, I did year 12 the first year I was there, so I was still a schoolboy. So, I wasn't really part of the plan in a sense, but it was good fun. They were a great club and very challenging. Tommy was very simple in the way he coached. It was very much, put your head over the ball, try as hard as you can and kick it as long as you can, and no finessing and all that sort of stuff. So it was a different time, but I'm really good mates with a lot of the blokes I played with, the whole time. So, we were very lucky.
Now, Balme, let people out there, mightn't you? You did try and change and get a little bit more. Let's kick to the fat side and a little bit more nous out of Richmond and out of Tommy, but didn't have much success. Describe the where you tried to with St. Francis and that for everyone, mate, because that's quite amusing.
Yes, because I'm playing forward and we just kicked it long and all that sort of stuff. And I sort of used to talk about it and look at it. I could see the game a little bit differently for some stupid reason. But I remember saying to Francis Burke, who was a wonderful player and still a really good friend and a lovely person, but he was very much in Tommy's, corner. And he just wanted to present what Tommy wanted. And I said to him one day, I said, when you come streaming out of half back the way you do, and you look down the field and you see me, I don't want you to kick it to me, but whatever side I am of my opponent, can you kick it to that side? It might make it easier for me to get the ball and kick a goal. And he looked at me for 5 seconds and thought, I'm sure he was thinking, what does Tommy want me to say? He said, that's as weak as piss. Get it yourself.
Very high-tech footy back then, Balme.
See ball, get ball, kick ball.
And go through just – and look, okay, Balme, and I don't want to – for mine, everyone goes on about the physicality of Neil Balme and all that, but everyone's forgetting that the era – it's a completely different era back then. We've had enough controversy this week in general, but totally different. And every side had their physical players in it. And in that, I always think that everyone forgets a little bit of how good a player Neil Balme was because everyone only thinks of the physicality of the Jeff Southby. We see it every year, et cetera, and that side of things, Balme.
Yes, well, it was a funny time because I was talking to the Carlton blokes the other day because a bloke called Dan Eddy's written a book about the 72 and 73 grand finals. It was quite interesting. So I've had actually some time face to face with the Carlton guys who actually are quite, we get on pretty well to be fair. But when you look back at it, it was I felt that I had to impose myself on the opposition. Because that was the way I saw the game, and that's not really my nature. I'm not really an aggressive, nasty person, but as a player, I was. But I never did it it was never never angry. It was just what I felt that I had to do. And funny, the Carlton blokes say that the worst thing Carlton ever did was trade or transfer Ricky McLean to Richmond because Ricky was mad. He was
a
tough as
lunatic.
nails, and I did sort of learn a fair bit from him. And they said the reason that was the worst thing they ever did because he taught me to be an assassin, which is a bit cruel. And it's probably true because, that was not necessarily my nature, but I felt that I needed to compete. And I felt that our blokes needed us to impose ourselves on the opposition, and we sort of got away with it. So,
and you did.
Yeah, it's a bit nasty. And when I look back at it, you think, it probably wasn't the ideal thing to do. But I felt my emotional intelligence said, this is what I've got to do to impose myself on the opposition.
And didn't you have a bit of an amusing thing with at least one of your kids, there might have been two, where they're playing, the grand finals, the movie grand final marathon on the night before a grand final. Of course, they've played the 73 grand final, and your son was sort of, is that really you, Dad, sort of thing?
Yeah, it was William. He was only a young bloke, and he looked at it, and his eyes were getting big. He said, "Is that you?" But he did do what he was told for a little while. He thought I was mad.
Had no problems with him behaviour-wise the next couple of weeks,
Not for a little while.
Trash got taken out, the dishes got done, and the lawns got mowed. Everyone's a winner.
Exactly.
Mate, just going over some of that time with Ricky McLean, you guys kicked 110 goals for the season between yous. You would have terrorised a few backmen during that time?
Yeah, I think we probably did, yes. No, we did have a couple of good years together, but he's a great mate, Ricky. I really got on well with him. And again, we won the goal kicking between ourselves with 55 goals each. That's a lot of goals.
Of course, the 70... So the grand final where you lost the goal-a-thon effectively, where you kicked, where the score Richmond kicked in 72 would have won the grand final. I think it was
every other year. Yeah, it was a record higher score.
Yeah, which was just crazy in terms of some 27 or 22, some ridiculous stat and all that. But then
they kicked 28-9 and we kicked 22-18.
Yeah, 22 we've lost. And so, but 73 then, in terms of the retribution and just, okay, we're not going to let this slip. So the rivalry between Carlton and Richmond at that stage for the number one spot was pretty incredible overall as well too.
Oh, no, it was. They were a terrific club, and I got nothing but respect for them. They were wonderful, but they were. They knocked us off in 72. We didn't defend. We didn't take our defence seriously enough, I didn't think, and we genuinely all committed ourselves to the fact that we weren't going to let it happen again, and which is probably why we behaved the way we did, or certainly I behaved the way I did, because we just weren't going to give them another shot at it. And in those days, you sort of got away with a lot more things. The umpire, there was only one umpire, and they could have it on the footage, but that was never taken into account later on. So you got away with a lot of things. So, and we felt that, I felt that I needed to impose myself on the opposition, and I did a couple of, pretty unpleasant things in a way, but that was the way I thought I had to do what I had to do for my team and my mates. But and 73 was really a powerful year, and we won again in 74 as well.
Yeah.
So it was wonderful. Yeah.
So you were a dual premiership player by the age of 22 as well, Balme. So I think people there are forgetting that you were still a kid to a large extent, especially as a big man, and had obviously a very, very successful time already, Balme, sort of thing.
Yeah, so I mean, the sad thing for me as a player is that I finished at 27 because my knees were buggered, but it was hard work. But because we had a crazy pre-season in 79 where they made us run up these crazy hills, and that finished me forever. I don't think I've run since. Or no, a little bit. Played a couple of games for the mighty Redlegs, but not that many. Yeah.
That's we'll get to that. We'll get to that. Don't worry about that. 77 was 77. Where you came runner-up in the BNF? Did you think that was your best year overall?
Yeah, so I played the best that I'd played, and had a consistent season. I rucked the whole time, and I did play pretty well that year. I was starting to break down a bit after that. 78, I still played reasonably well, but I was battling. In 79, I only played a couple of games. My knees were gone. So, but no, 77 was probably my best year. I'd worked very hard off the field to get myself a lot fitter as well. I virtually ran every bloody day of my life with Johnny Tolman, who was a professional athletic runner, and with quite a few players training him at the Caulfield Racecourse. So I just ran, which I didn't love all that much, but I had to do it. So
the other thing fascinating
that gave me a good background for 77. Yeah,
fascinating bit about that, Balme, was quite where I've read it in Dan Eddy's book, and that was how many of you were all from different clubs. So imagine that nowadays, training together. Well, no way in the world does that happen nowadays. Gosh. So.
Oh, no, Joey Tolman was a terrific guy. He had a sports shop down at Heidelberg, and he was, athletic runner from a long time. And there was Len Thompson and Desi Tuddenham and I think Barry Goodingham and even Mick Nolan trained with us for a while, and quite a few others. It was good fun. It was Sam Kekovich, and I was good mates with all of them, actually, as it turned out.
Now during that period, did you get to play any state of origin?
Well, I played in the first ever State of Origin game for WA. Yeah. That was 77, I reckon, which we smashed the Victoria from memory. But yes, I think I saw the old jumper the other day. I think I've got that somewhere. That's the only bit of memorabilia I've got, but I found that running around. So
I'm not surprised with you, Balme, that wouldn't be your strength to hang on to gear and know where it was and all that sort of thing.
Well, I got no idea. I got no Richmond jumpers, no nothing. I just happened to be looking the other day, yesterday, and I found this Western Australian jumper. So I might sell that one day. You never know.
Put it in a frame. You never know.
So. A couple of other points with the Richmond side of things. On the negative side of it, like Richmond, where it was almost bloodletting, and like as we talking about Brian Wood getting a phone call from another club and him going, well, how in the hell have you got my number? Well, Graham Richmond gave it to me, and things like that with losing Reigns and Cloak, and Richmond they really managed to end that era a lot earlier than it should have due to their own stupidity almost.
Incompetence.
Yeah, I felt we did lose our way. We lost respect for the individual within it, which was, GR had been wonderful. He'd sort of set the whole thing up in the 60s and the early 70s, putting the teams together, etc. But in the end, it was just a little bit over-the-top ruthless. I mean, we just lost players that we shouldn't have lost. I mean, Brian Wood was the easiest bloke in the world to manage. And,
He's a good player.
Rainsy could have been the best player we ever had. And, Dave the Cloak, God, he's not hard to manage, but I'm not even sure how it all happened. I think they probably got offers from other clubs, and they went to the club and said, "Oh, look, I've got an offer. What should I do?" And I think we treated it as though that was just being disloyal. Go to buggery, you go to the other club. We'd already sold Brian Roberts and Jacko and Teaser to South Melbourne for Johnny Patura and all that sort of stuff. And we're saying, well, where's the mateship here? We belong to each other. You shouldn't be doing this sort of thing. And it's certainly, I think they certainly went mad. And then for a long, long time, Richmond struggled to overcome it, because when in footy, it's very much about people looking after each other and caring for each other. And if the organisation doesn't, automatically the players won't. Because if you don't give someone something, they won't give it back. And I reckon that's what we lost. And it took a long time to recover it. But fortunately, they finally did in 17, and we've won a couple of flags since then, and it's all pretty good there. We're in a really good place culturally now, but we had a long time when we were struggling.
Is that a case of a lot of the Victorian clubs still thinking old ways rather than embracing the new and the change?
No, I think all clubs have really embraced the change, and they're very much about looking after people and caring about them and caring about their culture and doing the right things. There's very little of the just do what you're bloody told nowadays. They've genuinely come along, or they've all come a long way. I've got no doubt whatsoever. Particularly, I talked to most of them, and certainly I went to Collingwood and we battled a little bit with it, but it wasn't too bad. And Geelong was very much thinking that way. And certainly Richmond was as well, and even more so now. So I think nearly all the clubs are very much about how to look after people. And you still have to make the hard decisions. There are times when you have to sell players, and there are times you have to make decisions on that, and you need to do that. But mostly it's about encouragement and help and support, rather than just, do what you're bloody told, or if you don't do what you're told, you're out of here sort of thing.
Yep.
So,
yeah.
No, they've genuinely come a long way.
Now, Balme, on some influences on you, I've always found Barry Richardson's role with you in your career fascinating, and just give us some other big influences there. And obviously Barry Richardson was part of how you ended up at Norwood as well. Yeah,
Bones has always been a great mate. We've always thought the same way about footy. There's another way. There's more to it than Tommy thought, and a few of other things. So he's been a big influence, and he's still a very good friend. But I was very lucky that as a reasonably young bloke, I was appointed by Norwood to coach them, and it was a huge risk from their point of view, because they all thought I was mad. Well, all the people thought, this sort of play is crazy. But as it turns out, I wasn't actually, and it was the best thing I've ever done going to Norwood, because I was also kind of intellectually, I sort of knew what footy was about, but I was also still prepared to learn.
Yeah.
And there's no doubt that South Australia had a different view on footy, and particularly the Wally Millers and even the Johnny Wynns and that sort of stuff had a different view on how it was played. And I was, rather than just coming in as coach and saying, go to buggery and do what you're told, I wanted to learn what they had to teach me. And Wally's been an enormous influence over, my footy thinking, and Winnie as well, and even, Glenn Rosser and Bruce Winter to a degree, and
Staz.
Lots of, and Staz particularly, yeah. So it was lots of them really helped me enormously. I mean, because I always remember there's a beautiful line that Tommy Hayter used to come over and play in the Australian Championships in 73, 4 or whatever. And Tommy was interviewed one day, and they said, well, what do you think about Adelaide, Tommy? And he said, oh, beautiful place, Adelaide. He said, but there are a lot of South Australians here. Which meant that we all thought that South Australians did think differently, and they did. But a lot of it was very positive in the footy, because it really went to the next step. I mean, the Jack Odie thinking and all that sort of stuff was a step above what people in Melbourne were doing in a way. and I was lucky enough to sort of recognise that and get to learn from it through the Wallies and the Winnies and Stazzers and that of the world. So I was very lucky because it gave me a different view of footy.
Oh, look,
I mean, I still had the Richmond take on it. I still had the competitive take. I still had all that. But there's a different way of doing it. Do you give a handball? Do you where do you go? What position do you take? And all that sort of stuff. There was a lot to learn out of what they did in SA.
Oh, look, and I thought it was fascinating too, where it was a night in the Red Leafs Club, with your appointment, and it's what in the hell have Norwood done? They've appointed, Neil Balme.
That was in 1980, wasn't it?
1980, yep. They appointed that thug. Well, I probably, because I was lucky enough that Wally had organised Alan Killigrew to coach us at Norwood High. So Wally had turned up, was there every Saturday, and I was already doing things at Norwood then, raffle-wise and helping out, so I knew Wally anyway. But I thought, well, hang on, Wally's appointed this Neil Balme guy. He can't be that crazy and all that. And honestly, that night, there was trepidation in the room, but Balme, you won over people pretty quick, your personal side, and it was pretty early on that everyone thought, this guy's okay.
Oh, look, funnily enough, Killer coached me for a while at Subi, as it turned out, and I sort of knew them all. But, it was a risk that the club had taken. But certainly, I know Sheeds and Barry Richardson had both spoken to Norwood at the time, and they both recommended me to Wally, etc., as a reasonable bloke to do the job. So I had a few people in the corner who were looking after me. I'd not really thought about coaching at all. I thought, I'm just going to work like a normal person now. But I was really loved the fact that I was able to coach Norwood. And I came here and we started our own business, the business that I'd worked for in Melbourne as well. And it was, I don't know how we did it. We finished up running a factory with 60 or 70 people working for us. And I ran a coached a footy club and had a family. I don't know how the hell did we do it in those days, but it was wonderful. I really loved my time in Adelaide, and particularly at the Norwood Footy Club.
And I think in 1982, Balme, we didn't start well, but as you said, you were prepared to listen, and it was Bruce and Stazzer and that going, well, Balme, we haven't got a Royce Hart at centre half forward. We've got to change things up a bit here, and from there, I think everyone forget that Norwood came home like a train, and we were bloody unlucky. Hugo getting injured at work of all places when he was having a really good, strong year, especially at the end. We end up with having to play a kid, Nick Walker, in the ruck against a bloody strong Port side in the grand final where we come from the elimination final, and we were. And Michael Taylor played one of the great individual games. Where he took Russell Ebert to the cleaners. We nearly got up in that GF.
Yeah, in 80, yeah, absolutely. We did a great job. But Kingo was wonderful, wasn't he? He was one. He gave you absolutely everything. But he was a beautiful guy, lovely fella. But and it was interesting too because he came to me and said, "Oh, the Melbourne teams want me to come. What should I do?" And everyone's saying, "Oh, we got to keep him." I said, "Well, no, mate, it's good for you. Let's go and do it." So I think I set that up as well, that people realise that I wasn't just there for us and me. Well, we were there for them. We wanted the individuals to, if they get something out of it, let's help them. I mean, Kingo goes and plays in Melbourne, and that doesn't help us at Norwood, but it does ultimately because he's one of ours.
Yeah, and
we've got to look after him. We've got to help him, and all of our kids know that we're going to help them. We're going to help them do what's good for them rather than just what's good for us. Yeah, I think I was kind of ahead of my time in a little way about that. I accepted let's look after the people rather than just look after the organisation.
And then, of course, 81, the unluckiest and weirdest game of football where at quarter time and the prelim final against Glen, you could actually feel the wind changing. It was unreal that it changed exactly at the quarter time break. It was bizarre.
It was awful, wasn't it?
But that's Footy Park for you, though.
Oh,
yeah,
that would happen down at West Lakes there.
It was a weird game.
Yeah. It was, but that's all part of it. You got to learn from all that. And fortunately, we were able to do a couple of things the next year and we're very proud of what we did in '82. I must.
Yeah, it was, and we came home in '82 where we were convincingly the best side. Look, the qualifying final. Yeah, everyone forgets that we were down in that last quarter in the qualifying final, and the Keith Thomas left-handed handball to Turbs and things like that. So, and then we'll jump forward a little bit. In '84, the first semi against Centrals, we were nearly 3 goals down at the 22-minute mark and came home. So, as Norwood supporters, I think we always thought we underachieved a bit what we had, and we should have won more flags. And as I've got older, I've gone, well, hang on, we actually got up in those two, and I think we're forgetting how bloody strong the competition was and the other sides were. I reckon I've mellowed a bit and been a bit more realistic about everything in that regard, Balme, as I've got older and paid the North Adelaide and Glenelg sides and the Port sides the respect we should have really, in time as a supporter. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we're very selfish in the way we think. We only think our own way. But we also know that to win a flag or to win a final even is a wonderful effort, because everyone's doing their best. They're putting everything in, and it's very hard to predict who's any good and who's not. But we always believe in ourselves pretty strongly, so we always had some chance. But we did some great stuff. I was very proud of my time at Norwood, I must admit.
The '84, obviously, year obviously didn't go as planned. You'd like to be doing a little bit better. And when did you get a bit of a sense that things were starting to change and go in your favour, and then really carried all the way through to the grand final?
Oh, I'm terrible. I think we're going to win every week, always. So I'm over positive. But it's so far back that I can't really recall the real detail of it all. But I just know that just a little bit by bit by bit, we were believing in ourselves a little bit more, and it was a wonderful, exciting time. It was wonderful to get up that year, I must admit, but I can't quite recall all the simplicity of it and the intricacies of it. But
I reckon I can, Balme.
It's something to be proud of.
Well, it's a pretty special year. I mean, considering he'd been there in '82 and disappointment of '83, and then coming from fifth in '84. I mean, there's just got to be so many wonderful memories with so many wonderful players during that period.
Oh, it certainly was. It certainly was. That was one of the good things about it. I think the relationship between the coaches and the players in those days, that the boys did take responsibility. They said, yes, it's our turn and let's go. So it was wonderful, really, really quite wonderful.
And, some of the good fun times we had, and, like, I've never forgotten the day of the Release Club where Winnie noticed Ashley Porter in the corner, and Winnie's throwing a clipboard or something on the ground, and he said, I've had a guts full, bloody bears going to Port. And he stormed out, and all he did was walk around the corner to the other door in the blue room, and Porter was walked out, and on the back page of the news on the Monday, button to Port, and Winnie just pissed himself. Yeah, as we know, Winnie's one of the great practical jokers, and he just stitched someone else up again.
He didn't mind doing that. But I was lucky that as a kid I barracked for West Perth in WA, and Winnie played for West Perth. So I remember the great JF Wynn playing from then, and then all of a sudden I come back to Norwood and he's there. He was, and we're still bloody good friends. He's a lovely person.
A great man.
A bit mad in the best
in a calculating way. Yes.
Yeah, very good. He's wonderful.
Now, it'd be remiss if we didn't make mention of the '84 grand final, the opening bounce, or the national anthem. Now, let myself, and probably Malcolm already probably knows this, but let the listeners in. Was it a bit of a preconceived plan that you were going to ruffle a few feathers of Port Adelaide just to put them off their game a little bit?
Well done, Ian Stazanowski and Greg Nicholson. Yes.
Well, we did want to do that, but it was Staz more than anybody else, because he'd played on Timmy Evans so many times. So he's spent all week with Craig explaining to him, what he might say about whether he had sex with his sister or whatever he said. I don't know what he said, but I don't mean that, but you know what I mean.
Yep.
And so clearly Craig's sort of been well planned, and Staz is there. He's happy with it, and for the first time ever, they've had everyone in position when the poor girl's trying to sing the Advanced Australia Fair, and blowing in the goal square. It was and then the cameras come on to me and I'm smirking.
Smiling,
They
yes.
assume, they're assuming that I actually set it all up. Well, I actually didn't, but I would have if I had known.
I think the other bit too, that we were a supporter, we're going, well, he is Balme's brother. What will Craig do here? So there was trepidation there, thinking and all that. But honestly, Craig just did it very well, and readily admitted where he said, "Well, hang on, I'm standing as a superstar. I had to do something for my own liberty," and he just sucked him in beautifully.
Doesn't get any bigger than that, does it?
And Tim got reported for striking him.
Yeah,
it turned out. So that was we felt even better.
And the first 10 minutes of that game were just unbelievable football from both sides. But
I think the whole game was.
Well, the whole game was, but the
was.
first 10 minutes just had that intensity that just typified a Norwood Port rivalry. Was it a little bit like that between Richmond and Carlton and Richmond and Collingwood, or?
Oh yeah, no, there is. I mean, there's always that. It's wonderful, really. It was certainly Richmond and Carlton. We were very much. We used to beat Collingwood most of the time, so we felt happy with that. But Carlton were much more challenging than that. All sides are hard to beat, but you love playing against some. And I think the Norwood Port stuff will always be a wonderful part of South Australian footy.
Were you aware of that rivalry before you took on Norwood as a coach?
Oh no, really, I didn't know much about SA footy at all. No, but it didn't take long to find out.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've always loved the way where Balme, you've stuck up for South Australian footy. Balme used to be on a spot with Kevin Bartlett on a Friday morning, and I rang up once and said, Balme, how would you compare the late Jim Teal, the late great Jim Teal, and Craig Kelly as players? And Balme's replied, well, Malcolm, you're probably better qualified than me. You've seen more. I've said, well, I consider Jim Teal the better player. And Balme's gone, yeah, well, so do I. And within about 10 minutes, the switchboard's full with, how could you say that? And, he's a Collingwood premiership centre half back, and Balme's gone, I know it'll shock a lot of you Victorians out there, but there were a hell of a lot of good footballers in South Australia who could have played VFL footy and didn't, and that. And I still say that Norwood side in general back then, and several other South Australian sides at that stage, would have been more than competitive in the VFL. We probably just lacked a couple of tall guys and maybe a little bit of depth on the list. But overall, we would have been more than competitive.
Oh, no doubt. And people like McIntosh and Ace and Teal and Warhurst even, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We had some, Kingo obviously went across and played, but, Ned was one of ours too. Kelly was one of ours too,
Tony
obviously.
Francis, et cetera.
Remember, I convinced him not to go to Port Adelaide and come to us. It was wonderful.
That's right. Yes, yeah. Because his dad played for
Port. Our SA footy was always very strong. There's no doubt. And again, I was living it, so I loved it, I must admit, yeah.
And then, 11 years at Norwood, finals in every year, Balme. You then went and was the inaugural coach of the Woodville and West Torrens club combined. And, Darcy Evans makes the point that you were the perfect person for that role because it did need a really good communicator to get those two clubs together. And, you bit there where Bruce went with you, and then, of course, Bruce coached a premiership side there in 93.
Yep.
Your enjoyment there in terms of Woodville West Torrens as well, Balme?